Hello and welcome to our final session of the Living Well Longer series. My name is Lisa Schneck and I will be walking you through the slides from our most recent Lunch and Learn. Today we're going to be talking about stress, sleep, and recovery, the hormone connection, how stress physiology and sleep quality affect aging and healing. This session is designed for educational purposes to support a healthy lifestyle. It does not provide medical advice or address individual medical conditions. Always consult your doctor or other qualified health professional before making changes to your medications, treatments, or to your care plan. So what we want to establish right in the beginning is the relationship between stress and rest. When you are in a stressed state, you cannot be in a rested state. And when you are in a rested state, you cannot be in a stress state. Those two things cannot occur at the same time. And so this is something really important for us to understand on a fundamental level as we move forward into this presentation. I think we can all agree that modern life is biologically loud. The human nervous system evolved over hundreds of thousands of years to expect something very specific: rhythm, rest, darkness, movement, and recovery. It was not built for constant digital stimulation, perpetual alerts, artificial light after sunset, relentless multitasking, or the low-grade background anxiety of modern life. When the nervous system never gets a true all-clear signal, it stays in a state of low-level readiness or stress. And that sustained activation has measurable costs to health, sleep, and longevity. So remember, a nervous system that cannot fully rest cannot fully repair. When we look at what we were built for versus what we live in, we can clearly see that our biology is running ancient software in a modern environment. This mismatch can have real physiological consequences. So the natural rhythms are sunrise and gradual morning light, darkness and stillness at night, purposeful physical movement, time spent in nature, seasonal and daily rhythms, periods of genuine quiet. But in our modern life, many of us are experiencing screens and notifications all day, blue light exposure after dark, chronic low-level stress, multitasking and information overload, artificial light at night, and sedentary hours followed by poor sleep. And so how does this impact us? Well, we go to the hormones here, and specifically the hormone cortisol. Cortisol is meant to follow a rhythm. In a healthy system, cortisol peaks at dawn, and this helps to initiate wakefulness and energy. It then declines steadily throughout the day, reaching its lowest point at night to allow deep restorative sleep. However, chronic stress disrupts this elegant rhythm. So as you can see on the left, we have cortisol peaking in the morning, and then over the course of the day, the cortisol will begin to dampen. Now, what many of us do experience is something quite different. We are continuing to experience stress. We have multiple tabs open, so to speak, in our mind, and there's scanning and constantly looking at emails and looking at messages and reading content that is emotional. It's designed to be emotional just to get us to read it or to listen to it. And so what's happening is we are staying in sort of a chronic, at minimum, low level of stress, which keeps our cortisol levels up, which is to say that we are remaining in a somewhat activated state all of the time. Now you can imagine going from an activated state into a restful state. Right? There needs to be some sort of a transition between the two. Unfortunately, in our modern time, many of us actually turn to substances in order to switch from this, overload of cortisol into a restful place. So again, the body cannot repair while constantly preparing for battle. These are two very opposite things. The nervous system operates in these two primary states. We have the sympathetic state here on the left, what we could call fight or flight. Fight or flight doesn't have to be intense enough that you are literally ready to fight or run away. We can have lower levels of that are chronic, that are also quite bad for us. So when we're in this fight or flight state, our cortisol and our adrenaline are elevated. Our heart rate and our blood pressure rise. Our digestion is suppressed. Our immune function is downregulated, and cellular repair and healing are paused, which makes complete sense. If we are in a situation where we have to be ready to fight for survival, or to run and get out of a situation as quickly as possible, and yet we sit there sustaining this state, you can imagine that it isn't intelligent for the body to also begin healing and digesting and allowing the immune system to function. All of these things are kind of like at a code red, suspended. Now, conversely, when we're in our parasympathetic rest and repair state, it's a completely different story. Now we have calm, we have cellular repair and tissue healing engaged. We have our immune function is supported and restored. Our hormone regulation is normalized. Our sleep, our digestion, and our recovery are now fully online. So sleep is one of the most powerful biological processes for repair. It is during sleep that memory and learning are consolidated. So sleep is consolidating new information and taking it from short-term and placing it into long-term memory. This is essential for cognitive vitality at every age. While we are sleeping, our immune defense is escalated, and even a single poor night of sleep will measurably reduce natural killer cell activity and immune responsiveness. Our hormone regulation is resetting, so we're talking here about growth hormone, our cortisol, our insulin sensitivity. These all essentially reset during sleep. These are foundational for our metabolism and for our healing. And then one of the most amazing things that happens while we sleep, glymphatic cleansing. This is when the brain is flushing metabolic waste, including the proteins associated with neurodegeneration, from the brain. This is primarily happening through this one window, this one window where many of us don't even get an hour of this sleep each night. This is called deep sleep. We're going to talk about it a good bit more. But during deep sleep, our body's primary repair window, the glymphatic system, which is the brain's dedicated waste clearance network, comes online. The brain tissue will actually shrink just a little bit during this process. And channels surrounding the blood vessels open up, and cerebrospinal fluid will flow through those channels, and it's flushing out metabolic byproducts that have accumulated during waking hours. And one of those byproducts is the amyloid beta and tau protein tangles. These compounds are associated with Alzheimer's disease and other neurodegenerative conditions, and they're allowed to accumulate over time if this glymphatic cleaning is not happening. So this system is most active during the deep slow wave sleep. It is significantly impaired by sleep fragmentation, short sleep duration, and chronic stress-related sleep disruption. Consistently poor sleep may impair this nightly cleansing process, one of the most compelling neurological arguments for protecting your rest. Now, there are different stages of sleep, and they perform different repair functions. So sleep is not just one single uniform state. Each of these stages has a distinct and essential biological role. And we need them all. We don't want to skip any of them. The first is light sleep. Light sleep will continue to occur throughout your time in bed. So let's say if you were staying in bed for 8 hours, you will enter into light sleep. That's that period just as you're falling asleep where the body temperature drops and the heart rate begins to slow and the brain begins organizing information from the day. But a person could still be awakened really easily at this point. And from there, you're going to move into deep sleep. And this is going to work just kind of like a cycle. You'll be in light sleep, and then you're going to go down into deep sleep, and then you're going to come back up into light sleep. And this is going to repeat. Each person is very different. Typically, we say 90 minutes is the length of each one of these cycles that continues to recur throughout the night. It's not a hard, fast rule for anyone, 90 to 150 minutes, each one of those cycles. And so you will begin with the light sleep, you will transition into the deep sleep and then come out, and you'll continue to do that with deep sleep until about halfway through your entire sleep process. And then you will begin alternating deeper into REM sleep. And we're going to get a bit more into this in the next slide. So something that we really want to be considerate of, if you'll take a look at that AI generated image there on the left, what that's intended to represent is just kind of this pattern of moving into the deep sleep and then coming back to the light sleep, going back into the deep sleep, and now moving for the second half of the evening. You're going to do the same thing, moving from light sleep into REM or rapid eye movement. This is when we're dreaming and memories are consolidating and emotions are processing and so forth. That's going to happen during the second leg of your sleep. So what we want to understand is the importance of our own natural rhythm. So each person has their own sleep chronotype. Now we're not going to speak much about chronotypes beyond what I'm about to say now. Each person has their own chronotype. And what this essentially means is that from a genetic standpoint, you will perform better and feel better waking up at a particular time naturally and then going to sleep at a particular time naturally. So when all else is equal and you can choose naturally what feels most comfortable to you, then there's going to be a particular waking time and a particular sleeping time where you just operate the best that way. What we're going to be talking about today is your circadian rhythm. And this, unlike your chronotype, can be manipulated a bit. So you can establish a circadian rhythm that works with your expectations. So if you are a chronotype that is actually more inclined to wake later in the morning and to go to bed later at night, and your responsibilities indicate that you need to get up earlier, so you have to get up earlier than what is ideal for your chronotype, you can still work with establishing your circadian rhythm. And that's most of what we're going to be talking about, is establishing a circadian rhythm that works for you. We need to be able to get all of the sleep that is required. So for men, the need is closer to 7 hours per night. And for women, that need is closer to 9 hours per night. Now, each person is quite different. And so you will learn over time what is best for you. But once you have that nightly ritual of going to bed at a particular time, even if that is only on average, you will begin to have a circadian rhythm that is going to emerge. Now, what will happen for you is each night when, let's say that your circadian rhythm is set on average for a 10 o'clock sleep time and a 6 o'clock wake time. And this is on average what you're doing each night. Well, then that means that at about 10 o'clock, when you go to sleep, you will go into your light sleep and then move into deep sleep. From there, you will go through your deep sleep in about 4 hours from the start of that entire process. Then you will begin transitioning into REM sleep. So if on a one-off night or maybe a few nights in a row, instead of getting to bed at 10, you're actually getting to bed at midnight or even later, you will move from light sleep and likely miss at least some, if not all, of the deep sleep cycles that you would have experienced had you went to bed at 10. And so what I'm essentially saying here is that your body is going to follow the clock, not when you actually lay your head down. And so if you are typically in deep sleep at a particular period of time and you've missed that time, your body will move forward into whatever stage you should be in at about that time. And so if deep sleep is when we're getting our physical restoration, which it is, then missing that deep sleep means that we are going to miss some of that physical restoration of our body and the physical components of our mind. At the same time, let's say something different is happening. Let's say you are getting to bed at your average sleep time of 10 o'clock, but for whatever the reason, you're having to get up earlier than usual. So you are waking at, let's say, 4 o'clock in the morning. And so you are missing 2 hours of your rapid eye movement, 2 hours of your REM, which is where we are getting memory consolidation. It's where we're processing through our emotions and so forth from the day before. So whatever it was that we've experienced the day before, it's during our sleep that we are mentally kind of processing through this information. Dreams tend to go along with what it is we're processing, although oftentimes in ways that are not readily evident to us as we explore those dreams. So the important thing is to have a consistent sleep time and wake time, and to not, at least to as consistently as possible, be enjoying the full sleep cycle at the time when we would normally be experiencing that sleep cycle. Even one poor night of sleep is going to have an impact on us. Sleep is not one uniform state. It shifts across the night to support different forms of repair. Cutting sleep short or going to bed late costs you different things depending on when it happens. And so essentially what we experience is that stress can cause us, it can prevent the sleep that would relieve it. So it's a stress-sleep feedback loop. When we enter sleep in a stressed or agitated state, the nervous system is staying on alert and the body prevents us from dropping into the deep, restorative sleep that we need most. So we've got elevated cortisol from the stress of the day, blocking deep sleep. Then we have hyperarousal, and that is fragmenting our sleep architecture. And then when we are losing that quality of sleep, that is causing the secretion of more cortisol. It is causing us even more stress. Research shows that people under chronic stress spend measurably less time in deep sleep. Even when they're in bed for 7 to 8 hours, their sleep becomes lighter. It becomes more fragmented. It becomes less restorative, and that cycle will continue to escalate. Stress and poor sleep form a self-reinforcing cycle. Breaking it requires addressing both, not just the amount of time that you're in bed. So an important thing that we are learning here about our sleep, even though we are laying down and becoming completely unconscious and passive, rest and recovery are not passive. They are actually incredibly active. Recovery is where the adaptation actually happens. So, whatever it is that you are working toward in your daily life where we are taking action, it is at night when we are sleeping that real change is occurring, whether that is, the creation or the strengthening of your muscle or better firing of the central nervous system or whatever it is, it's happening while you sleep predominantly. The body does not become stronger, more resilient, or healthier during effort alone. It becomes stronger afterward during rest. Sleep, stillness, and deliberate recovery are not passive states. They are active biological processes where tissue rebuilds, hormones reset, inflammation resolves, and the nervous system organizes itself for the challenges ahead. Every time you protect your rest, you are doing some of the most productive work of your day. And so, your sleep environment, this is your recovery laboratory. Your sleep environment is a way that you can actively author, right? You can actively create the very environment that is going to help you get this sleep more effectively, more impactfully, and to be as healthy and as clear and as functional as possible. So, a couple of things that we can work on here. Number one is the temperature. So, when your core body temperature drops 1 to 3 degrees, this kind of initiates sleep. What research indicates is a room temperature between 65 degrees and 68 degrees. Now, down here in Southwest Florida, I do not know a single person who sets their air conditioning down in the 60s. Most folks down here are mid 70s. I personally start to shiver at about 73 degrees. And so it's all relative. If you feel cool, which is what you really want to feel whenever you're going to bed at night, that's sufficient rather than relying on a particular number. Paradoxically, taking a warm bath before you go to bed can help drop that body temperature down. Darkness is also very important, whether you need blackout curtains or blue light filters on your devices. If you're someone that, watching a TV show actually helps you to sleep, we're not here to pass judgment. It doesn't, whatever it is that you are doing to wind down, if it works for you, then it works for you. We're less looking at right and wrong, and we're looking at what's effective and what's not. So we want that darkness. We especially want that blue light. We don't want that around us. And of course, that's the artificial light off of all of our devices. Even small amounts of light during sleep suppress melatonin. They fragment sleep architecture. Blackout curtains, as I said, are great. They also make really incredible sleep masks that will come with earpieces where you can listen to classical music. This was something that a member actually brought up during the live presentation. So these are highly effective and underused opportunities for increasing the quality of your sleep. And then quiet and calm. And this really speaks to what specifically we are talking about. To go from a stressed, or let's just say activated state, right? No judgment. We're activated. We're ready to go. Right? When we are activated and ready to go, there are many systems in our body that are also activated and ready to go. The whole person is activated and ready to go. And when this is in response to something that we're seeing on our device at 10 o'clock at night, to a television show, to a relational issue, to something that we're ruminating on, which is very common at night, right? Your brain has the opportunity to really just go through scenarios and situations and so forth. And to go from being activated to being asleep, to being in a restful parasympathetic state, you have to do something, right? There has to be something that moves us from one state to the other. If you just try to lay your head down, that's probably not going to be effective, even if you are so tired that you still go into sleep. It's not going to be the same quality of sleep that you would get if you can reach that restful, relaxed state to let things that you cannot control or do anything about go. So we know that noise elevates cortisol even when you don't consciously wake up. So white noise in the room, whether that's from a fan, there's so much great technology out there. You can even use your phone or earplugs if there's some sort of sound in the room that you need to silence. These can meaningfully improve your sleep depth in urban or even shared environments. And then the wind down ritual. So at a particular time of the day, we initiate a sequence of events that we're going to do every single evening as consistently as possible, so that as soon as we do the first thing on that list that establishes our wind down ritual, the body and the mind kind of know, hey, it's time for me to relax now. So whatever that might be, for some people, it may be washing their face, brushing their teeth, getting out a book, getting a cup of herbal tea, this being something that is enjoyable, relaxing, somewhat indulgent, and kind of letting go. Get the phone out of the room, certainly get it out of your hand if you can, and just go into a time of taking care of yourself. And once you have the wind down ritual defined, that provides to you what you most need and want in that wind down ritual. It's just a matter of doing that consistently each night. May take some effort in the beginning. Anything that we human beings do for the first time is going to be a little awkward and clunky. Anything that we do consistently over and over that is even a little bit pleasant will become a habit. It will become automated, so that, let's say it's 9:30 at night, your body will start recognizing that that wind down ritual is about to begin, and that will go so far toward helping you get that higher quality of sleep. So when we're talking about practical strategies for getting that excellent sleep, then the first thing we want to acknowledge is that excellent sleep doesn't begin at 10 o'clock at night. It begins first thing in the morning. So throughout the day, we are addressing our body in a particular way so that when that 9:30 comes and it's time to start that pre-sleep ritual, we are set up for success. Step number one is to get sunlight on your retinas within an hour of waking. Within 30 minutes is really preferable. So just walk outside and spend just a little bit of time outside in the sun. Now, something like this is what we could call an anchor habit. When you wake up, you anchor that habit. As soon as I get out of bed, I'm going to walk outside on the lanai and get that sunlight. Second, it's again that consistent sleep and wake times. We really don't have the luxury of having a wonderful habit 5 days a week, and then 2 days out of the week, we just throw that habit out the window, and now we're doing something that's completely different. We're going to suffer from that inconsistency. There are plenty of trade-offs in life, and this is a trade-off that we can all make. You can make the decision of whether you want to keep your sleep time 100% consistent or deal with the inevitable crash that can be associated with, on a particular night, you might stay up much later and then you're sleeping much later in the morning, or you're taking naps and now the nap is thrown off your sleep. It's so much better if you can establish consistent sleep and wake times. So again, we're anchoring at 6 o'clock in the morning. I wake up at 10 o'clock at night. I'm going to sleep. That cool, dark, quiet environment with that ideal sleep temperature, whatever that is, it should feel cool. Even getting rid of any low level light, reducing our screen use. Advice, we spend way too much time on our screens. And I think a number of us, many of us, if not most, are on screens way more than is healthy or even pleasant to us. So to just be aware when you're on your screen later in the afternoon, later in the evening, and find opportunities to test how you feel when you get that device out of your hand or out from in front of your face, and just be in the moment where you are, and then creating that calming pre-sleep ritual. So 9:30, I go and make my herbal tea. I walk upstairs, I've washed my face, I've brushed my teeth, I've put lotion on my hands, I've got my favorite book. Again, as pleasant as you can make the experience, it's going to make that habit all that much more easy to stick with. So we know that the 5 wellness superpowers have been an important component of our presentations for 2 years now, and that is no different for sleep. I'm not going to go through each superpower and tie it back to sleep, because I think we've really done that. We've established that already. However, there are some standouts. And when we talk about nutrition, there's definitely standouts for helping us get that sleep that we need. We have to provide the body with the building blocks it needs and what is powering these systems that we like to call our metabolism. This all isn't going to work well if we're not giving our body what it needs. And one of the ways that we might see this is in blood sugar stability. So if we're getting these spikes of sugar and insulin throughout the day, that really doesn't lead. It's not healthy. It's not good for us. It doesn't feel good in any way, and it will affect our sleep quality. And so maintaining stable glucose, this means eating at relatively consistent periods of time. For some people, every 4 hours. For some people, a little less. For some people, a little more. But keeping kind of a steady stream of energy coming in. And we want to use our proteins, especially our lean proteins like chicken and fish. We want to have lots of good plant food, all the different colors, all the different textures. This is just providing to the body what it needs for these systems to work well. We can't expect an excellent sleep and wonderful repair if we're not putting this stuff in our body. And the very act of putting that nutrient-dense food in is going to help you with the blood sugar stability. Additionally, we have anti-inflammatory foods. We've talked about omega-3 fatty acids and omega-6 fatty acids before. Omega-6 fatty acids, which are disproportionately high in the American diet. So things like steak. Steak would be high in omega-6 fatty acids. They are good for us. We just don't get enough omega-3 in ratio to the omega-6s. And so where you get the omega-3s is going to be from seafood and chia seeds and walnuts and things like that. So actively ensuring that we're getting enough of the omega-3 fatty acid, and to make sure that it's coming from whole foods as much as possible. It's very important and excellent for keeping the inflammation in our bodies down. From there, we look at protein and recovery. If we are trying to maintain our muscle tissue, then we have to consume protein. Okay, the only way you can build muscle tissue is if you have enough protein coming in, and most of us don't, unless you have at some point actively started trying. Most of us do not get enough protein. So what I teach people is to anchor every single meal with a protein, and especially if it's animal source protein. Protein is any meat. Protein is in dairy. It's actually quite high in Greek yogurt. It's wonderful. The form that's in cottage cheese is actually it's casein protein, and it's great for holding on to muscle. Also, protein is what our neurotransmitters, our enzymes, are. If I ask in the live presentation of these slides, which tissues in the body are made of protein? And the short answer is all of them. Even your bone matrix is made of protein. And so at night, when the body is repairing itself, well, you have to have that protein. If you don't, the only thing the body can really do is catabolize the lean muscle mass that you have. So it's very important to get that protein. And the protein is also important for your neurotransmitters, as I said. So if you've heard of serotonin and GABA and dopamine and norepinephrine, usually we hear about these things in relation to anxiety and depression and so forth. Well, these are all made of protein. And from there, we go into hydration and the need for magnesium. Magnesium is one of the most commonly deficient minerals, in our country. And so a lot of folks actually do have depleted magnesium, and it is very important. It is an electrolyte along with sodium and potassium. Whenever we are hydrating, we don't just need water. We do need that magnesium, potassium, and sodium. Now, our body is quite remarkable, and generally speaking, is going to pull those minerals from the foods that we eat and from the things that we drink if they happen to be in there. It's really good at doing that. Where you might run into a problem is if you are, let's say, you are sweating a lot in the Florida sun, and I mean a lot, not just you walked outside for a few minutes and broke a sweat. I mean quite profusely. If you're doing that over a period of time, then in order for you to rehydrate, you may need to add some electrolytes to your water, a little Gatorade, add it to your water. If you drink several cocktails every evening, again, the cocktails function almost like a diuretic. So they cause you to dehydrate, essentially. So all of your fluid, when you have alcohol in your system, you're continuously excreting fluid, and along with the fluid, some of these electrolytes, and sometimes many of them. So then hydration again becomes important. What you don't want to do is to just consume a large quantity of water thinking that is going to hydrate you. It can actually have negative outcomes when you do that. So, and quite negative. So, a condition called hyponatremia, it's really fairly common, where someone has rapidly lost their hydration. They've lost the fluid from their body, and then they're putting straight water back in. The water will follow sodium in the body. And so when you take in all of that water, then it's going to go where the sodium is highest, and that's going to be in your tissue. And so you're going to get massive tissue swelling potential there, and that includes the brain. It can cause coma. So just be careful. If you are not one that is sweating massive amounts like that, generally speaking, if you're paying attention, you can tell when you go to the restroom if you're hydrated or not by how dark your urine is. And we love as much as possible to keep things simple. That's not always the perfect way to ensure that you're hydrated. If you have some sort of a condition, or because of your medication, your doctor's concerned about it, then that overly simplified observation may not be the right track for you. But for most of us, that's good enough. Right. So before we move on, we are going to look at some supplements here. What we know about supplements is that they do not replace excellent sleep hygiene. They do not replace consistent schedules or stress regulation. They do not replace positive lifestyle choices that you can make. And so, what I mean by that is you cannot make poor lifestyle choices and then take magnesium glycinate and it's going to make everything better for you. So the foundations are first, but we do know that there are supplements out there that can also support the system. And when we're talking about sleep hygiene, these were a few I wanted to share with you, and it's worth repeating here. Don't just hear about a supplement and then start taking it if you're under medication or if you're under a doctor's care. Medications can be bound by supplements. Supplements can bind other supplements. It's important that you ask your medical provider first. So first at the top of the list is magnesium glycinate. So magnesium is usually bound with some other chemical, and that is how we absorb it. So there's magnesium citrate, for example, is primarily used to help move things through the digestive system. Magnesium glycinate doesn't have quite that same effect. It's important for, or I should say, supports GABA activity. You can think of GABA as the calming force in your body. GABA produces that parasympathetic tone, that calm, restful, not activated, right? And it helps to lower your cortisol regulations. And again, magnesium, one of the most widely depleted minerals in modern diets. Common amount to take would be 200 to 400 milligrams before bed. Glycine is an amino acid which lowers core body temperature and promotes slow wave sleep, 3 grams before bed, and it is well tolerated with a strong safety profile. L-theanine is found naturally in green tea. It promotes calm alertness and reduces sleep onset anxiety without causing sedation, 100 to 200 milligrams. So a cup of green tea when it's 9:30 and you've washed your face and brushed your teeth, that cup of green tea as you're reading your book might be a good idea. Tart cherry. This is a natural source of melatonin, an anti-inflammatory anthocyanins. Studies show improved sleep duration and quality. 240 milliliters of juice or a concentrated extract. Apigenin. This is a flavonoid found in chamomile that binds GABA-A receptors, promoting mild sedation and reducing anxiety, 50 milligrams before sleep. And then melatonin, this is probably the most popular of all sleep supplements, although it is a bit misunderstood. Melatonin isn't a sedative. It actually just triggers that circadian signal that it's time to go to bed. Some folks will take the melatonin and notice that they wake up later. That is why there's something else going on with the sleep. You're falling asleep, but then you're waking back up. One common issue is that over-the-counter supplements of melatonin are generally 5 to 10 milligrams. They're marketed as if more is better. And what research has indicated is actually the opposite, that smaller doses of melatonin are actually more appropriate and more effective than these large doses. So that's something, if you take melatonin, you can experiment with that. And as always, you would consult with your physician before beginning any supplement regimen, particularly if taking medications or managing chronic conditions. And that brings us to alcohol. Alcohol is a sedative, but it's not a sleep aid. What the research actually shows, while alcohol may help you fall asleep faster, it fundamentally disrupts the repair function sleep is meant to perform. So you've fallen unconscious, but a lot of what we want to happen while we're sleeping isn't going to happen. So as you're cycling through your sleep, you're going to spend up to 40% less time in REM, which is what it's essential for your memory consolidation, emotional regulation, brain health. Even moderate drinking, 2 drinks, produces measurable REM disruption. As the body metabolizes the alcohol, typically 3 to 4 hours in, depends on how much you've drank, your sleep's going to rebound to a lighter sleep. And a lot of people will wake up at that time. Part of the reason why we have the wake up, if you're somebody who commonly and habitually consumes alcohol, the body begins to kind of anticipate a certain level of alcohol as soon as you begin drinking or at a particular time. Then your body releases its own stimulants because alcohol is sedating. These stimulants are secreted in order to keep you awake, to protect you from the impact of the alcohol that you're consuming. And so at about 3 to 4 hours into your sleep, the alcohol itself will wear off, but those self-made stimulants are still in the system. And so folks, as they come up into that lighter sleep, they'll come awake, and it's a very anxious feeling, all that stimulants in the middle of the night, and especially if you have to wake at a particular time and you have responsibilities the next day, then that can kind of turn into that rumination that we can get. It's not the only way that we get that 3 o'clock in the morning wake up and rumination. A lot of that has to do with just fear of not being able to fall back asleep, and we'll talk a bit more about that later. From there, moderate alcohol consumption within an hour of bedtime can reduce melatonin production by nearly 20%, and this is interfering with the body's master clock. So the deep sleep alcohol may produce early in the night comes at the cost of suppressed REM and fragmented sleep overall. The brain tracks lost REM and tries to recover it, which is why vivid, disturbing dreams often occur in the early morning hours after drinking. To protect sleep quality, avoid alcohol within 3 to 4 hours of bedtime. If you do drink, understand that even moderate amounts will reduce restorative quality of your sleep that night. And from there, we're going to talk about movement. So when it comes to movement, the human being should move as much as is possible. Now, I say that knowing that the modern human being is really quite sedentary. So obviously, there is a point of diminishing returns on movement, and then there's a point at which you're actually overstressing the body with movement. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is find every opportunity you can to move your body, because it is literally like medicine for your body. So what I mean by that is when you go to the grocery store, don't drive around for 5 minutes looking for a parking space that's really close to the store entrance. Park somewhere away from everyone else. Enjoy the idea that you're unlikely to have somebody hit your car with their car door, and get those extra steps of moving into the building. Whenever you come over to the activity center, for example, use the stairs if possible and safe. Go up the stairs, go down the stairs. If you need to, if you're at your desk and you need to retrieve something, don't slide your desk chair over and grab it and then slide your desk chair back. Get up out of the seat, move your joints through their full range of motion, go to the pool, go dancing, find every occasion you can to move your body. And some other tips and tricks, if you can tie that movement with being outdoors and being in the sunlight first thing in the morning, boy, that's excellent. So maybe you get up, you get your cup of coffee, you go out on the lanai for that sunlight on your retinas, and maybe you just do a couple of stretches. Or if you like yoga, you do some yoga poses. If you're spiritual, maybe you say a prayer. If you, whatever it is, make it pleasurable. Be outside, be in the light, and be moving your body. From there, we look at resistance training. It's great to get cardiovascular training, but your muscle, in order to keep your muscle, you must contract it. And you must contract it from time to time a bit more than is common. right? So when we are doing intelligent, intentional training, we're just pushing each muscle in our body to do tiny bit more than what it prefers to do. Right. So we're not just grabbing up a weight or going to a machine and executing an exercise a few times. We actually want it to be a little bit difficult for the muscle. And that's good enough. That's good enough. Can we go further from there? We sure can. But to just make sure you're getting muscle contractions throughout the day, it helps preserve your muscle mass. It increases your insulin sensitivity. It increases your metabolic health. And all of that helps you sleep better. It also triggers so that when you're sleeping, your body is going to pay attention to the muscle. It's going to be healing the muscle if you were able to trigger an adaptation. While you're sleeping, your central nervous system is going to be wiring movements that you're learning in your exercise. They work very well together. Walking in low intensity movement. So this is activating your parasympathetic tone. A good example is just after you have dinner at night to just go outside, and you don't have to try to walk so many steps in a particular time. Just walk comfortably, maybe look around and enjoy your environment. This helps to reduce your blood glucose. It supports sleep quality. It just makes you feel better. And it puts us out in the world where those natural rhythms of the world, they're part of us. But most of us, I think, most of the folks that I would be talking to through this video, we spend a lot of time inside. We're going from home to the car, from, the store to the car, from, one building to another. We don't spend a whole lot of time consistently outside. And it's just an excellent thing to do for yourself. And then avoiding vigorous exercise late at night. So, when we exercise, it's raising our core temperature, it's raising cortisol a lot, it's activating. Right? When we talk about activation versus being, in a restful state, they're two very different things. So if you're activating yourself, and especially if you're doing that later at night, there's going to be a trade-off from that. So someone asked during the live, what about dancing on a Friday night? Well, you're going to be activated and you may not sleep quite as well, although the exercise that you performed, in some ways, that's going to help you sleep better. But you're probably going to lose a little bit of your sleep, but there's a trade-off. If you're out in your community and you're with friends and you're moving and you're laughing and you're having a good time, then I think the trade-off is worth it. So when we're still within the concept of movement and how that is helpful for our stress and therefore helpful for our sleep. And so what we want to talk about now is down-regulating the nervous system. And these are evidence-based practices of which you can do some research on your own. We have the physiological sigh. So that is essentially just sitting somewhere comfortably. I would say put your hand on your chest and then your hand on your belly. So when we breathe in, a lot of us, when we're doing it intentionally, the chest kind of expands and the shoulders lift. And that's really not what we're looking for. So that hand that you have on the chest, you really want the chest not to move. And we're going to use our diaphragm. So the belly, kind of like the belly's going to move. So we inhale through the nose. And then we exhale from the mouth, the chest not moving. Well, with the physiological sigh, it's a double inhale. So we're going to inhale slowly through the nose, and then we're going to take 1 second inhale, just really filling the lungs with oxygen. And then we're going to exhale relatively quickly there. That's been found to be an excellent reset. So when we want to go from an activated state to a relaxed state, the breath is a really handy tool for making that happen. By controlling the breath, you can then control the system. So what I mean by that, let's say that you are relaxed And now something has happened that's causing your stress to go up, your cortisol to go up. Well, your breath is going to begin also becoming more shallow. It's more in the chest. It's a very different way of breathing. And then you get sort of a self-reinforcing cycle where the breath is now actually causing the other physiology of being stressed out. Well, you can take the breath captive, so to speak, and do a breath like we just went through with the physiological sigh, and it actually does help to calm the body. Something else you could do would be the non-sleep deep rest, as that's been defined by Dr. Andrew Huberman from Stanford. You can find his excellent podcast on Spotify or on YouTube. That's Andrew Huberman. He talks about specifically non-sleep deep rest and yoga nidra. Yoga nidra is basically just almost like a guided meditation that you can do for yourself. There's fantastic research behind it that shows how helpful it is when a person has not got the sleep that they need the night before at kind of restoring them. Also very effective for helping a person move into that restful state when they want to. So is it super easy the first time that you begin to take the body sort of under your authorship, under your control? No. Anything we do the first time is going to feel awkward. However, very quickly, with consistent practice, you will come to find that you have quite a lot of control over your own physiology, your own conscious control. The non-sleep deep rest actually even helps to restore dopamine levels and cognitive function. You don't have to do this for hours, just 10 to 20 minutes will measurably improve recovery and mental clarity. Cold exposure is another for any masochists out there like myself. We do know that, when it comes to ice plunges or cold plunges where folks are getting into water that is less than 50 degrees, that's not necessarily what I'm talking about here. And we know for women that isn't necessarily healthy. So there's a little bit of debate there. But I personally do take a cold shower every morning. It's very brief, no more than 2 minutes, usually about 30 seconds. And it's just the cold water as it's coming out of the shower there in the beginning. It's enough to make me catch my breath. And I have to actually do breathing exercises to get through it. It makes you feel really good when it's over. It activates the dive reflex, especially if you hold your breath and let the water spray onto your face. I personally love it. It makes me feel much better. Emerging research indicates that it supports improved vagal tone. What we mean by vagal tone there is just that parasympathetic nervous system being activated. Again, it takes consistent practice. Nothing that's truly effective is something that you do one time and then, reap the benefits of it. And we've already talked about the importance of nature exposure. So even 20 minutes in nature measurably reduces cortisol and activates that parasympathetic tone. And then of our superpowers, this was the other one that I found. I really like this connection, which is connection. Humans heal better in connection. So if you're looking to improve your sleep, if you're looking to reduce your stress, and those two are the same, having connection, having support, having your community, it's very important. Isolation increases stress physiology. Social connection directly regulates the nervous system's capacity for safety and repair. Decades of research consistently show that loneliness activates the same stress threat pathways as physical danger. Connection is not a luxury, it's a biological need with measurable physiological effects. We need community, we need laughter, we need belonging. Here are your anchor behaviors. So this is each day you could anchor these behaviors, and that's going to lead you directly to better sleep. In addition, once these behaviors become permanent anchors in your day, you can then anchor other positive habits to those. So in the morning, the sunlight on your retinas within 30 to 60 minutes of waking, moving your body throughout the day, cutting off caffeine and alcohol and things like that so that they're not affecting your sleep, making sure that your sleep environment is dark and cool, and then having a consistent sleep and wake time. When we're building a healthy stress rest balanced life, it's the architecture is super important. It really cannot ever be about willpower, because willpower is not effective. We are architects of our environment, and that is how we're successful. That is how we're able to implement our wellness principles. And the first step is to be aware. And being aware does not mean with judgment. So when you hear that voice that's asking you, hey, why did you sleep in late today? Or why is it 11 o'clock and I'm looking at my device? That's really not the positive way we want to approach it. And I don't even like using the word positive there. It doesn't need to be positive or negative. We want to take the emotion and the judgment away and be curious. Be curious, why am I awake at this time? What am I getting from it? How can I get what it is that I'm getting from being awake later without being awake later? And we do that through curiosity and just paying attention. And the really beautiful thing is, as you're curious and you're aware, you're able to see things as they really are. And sometimes things that maybe have plagued us for a while that we just can't sort of navigate around, or there's that thing that we do that we say we're not going to do, but we're doing it. Awareness, just an open, curious awareness, can sometimes actually be the solution we were looking for. Rely on those anchored behaviors, then looking at the compound effect, again, small, consistent behaviors, that's how we transform. Not these big big actions. It's find something that moves you in the direction that you want to go, that is so small and so possible that it's just a matter of showing up and doing it, and then implement that consistently. And once that becomes anchored, then you can add to it. And remember that a nervous system that recovers well is a nervous system that ages well, with more energy, clarity, emotional resilience, and engagement in the life you want to live. Longevity is about function, energy, and engagement. We're looking for physical vitality, cognitive clarity, emotional resilience, and purposeful engagement, not simply more years. We want more life in our years. We want to be present and actively participating in the life that we have. So remember, your body is always listening. The signals we repeat become the life we experience. Every repeated choice, how you move, what you eat, when you rest, who you gather with, it is a message to your body. Your biology is not fixed. It is responsive, and it is responding right now. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope to see you soon.